The warm June sun streamed through the airport windows as 8-year-old Amara Johnson clutched her little purple backpack. This was a big day for her very first flight, all by herself. Well, not completely by herself. She was traveling, as what the adults called an unaccompanied minor, which meant she got a special orange lanyard with her information and the flight attendants would keep an eye on her. "Now remember, sweetheart, Grandma and Grandpa will be waiting for you when you land," her mother, Dr. Kimberly Johnson, said as she knelt down to Amara's level. Dr. Johnson worked as a children's doctor at the big hospital in the city. She was supposed to be in surgery today, which was why Amara was flying alone instead of with her mom like usual. "I know, Mom," Amara replied, trying to sound brave even though her stomach felt a bit fluttery. "And I have my tablet for movies and my book if the Wi-Fi doesn't work." Her mother smiled, tucking a braided strand of hair behind Amara's ear. "That's my girl, always prepared." A woman in a navy blue uniform approached them. "Are you Amara Johnson?" she asked with a friendly smile. Amara nodded. "I'm Ms. Chen and I'll be taking you to the plane today. We board a little early for our special travelers." After a tight hug and a kiss on the forehead from her mom, Amara followed Ms. Chen through the airport. They skipped the long security line, going through a special lane where Ms. Chen showed their badges. Amara felt important, like a VIP in one of the movies her mom sometimes watched. The airport was huge and buzzing with people rushing in all directions. Some pulled rolling suitcases, others balanced coffee cups and phones, and a few looked lost, staring up at the big screens with flight information. Amara stayed close to Ms. Chen, who kept a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Have you ever flown before, Amara?" Ms. Chen asked as they walked. "Yes, but always with my mom or both my parents," Amara replied. "We go to see Grandma and Grandpa twice a year, and sometimes we fly to Disney World." "Well, you're going to do great. Flying by yourself is a big step. You must be a very responsible young lady." Amara stood a little taller at this. Her second-grade teacher, Mrs. Thompson, had also called her responsible when she was chosen to be line leader for a whole week. At the gate, there were already people waiting, some looking at their phones, others reading books or just staring out the big windows at the planes. Ms. Chen spoke with the gate agent who checked Amara's information on the computer before smiling at her. "Looks like you'll be one of the first to board today," the gate agent said. "Are you excited for your trip?" Amara nodded. "I'm going to help my grandpa in his garden. He's growing tomatoes bigger than my fist." She held up her small hand and a ball to show the size. Both adults laughed, and for a moment Amara didn't feel nervous at all. When it was time to board, Ms. Chen walked her down the long tunnel connecting the airport to the airplane. At the airplane door, another woman in the same Navy uniform greeted them. "This is Amara Johnson," Ms. Chen explained. "She's traveling to visit her grandparents today." "Well, hello there, Amara," the flight attendant said. Her name tag read, "Beverly. I'll be taking care of you during our flight. Let me show you to your seat." The inside of the plane was narrower than Amara remembered. She followed Beverly down the aisle, passing rows of seats where a few early passengers were already settling in. Some looked up and smiled at her as she passed. "Here we are," Beverly said, stopping at row 12. "You've got a window seat. That's the best kind if you ask me." Amara slid into the seat and immediately peered out the small oval window. She could see people loading bags into the belly of the plane, and others driving small vehicles with blinking lights around the runway. "Now I'll be back to check on you once everyone's boarded," Beverly explained, helping Amara buckle her seatbelt. "If you need anything before then, just press this button." She pointed to a small button with a picture of a person on it above Amara's head. As Beverly moved away to help other passengers, Amara pulled out her book, The Secret Garden, from her backpack. Her mother had said it was one of her favorites when she was Amara's age. The cover showed a girl about Amara's age standing in front of an old wooden door covered in vines. More passengers began filing onto the plane. A woman with gray hair took the aisle seat in Amara's row, leaving the middle seat empty. She smiled at Amara. "Flying by yourself, dear?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Amara replied politely, the way her parents had taught her. I'm going to visit my grandparents. How wonderful, the woman said. My grandson is about your age. He's not brave enough to fly by himself yet. This made Amara feel proud. Maybe she would tell her friend Tyler about this when school started again. He was always bragging about how brave he was for jumping off the high dive at the pool. The plane gradually filled with people of all types, businessmen and women in suits typing on laptops, families with tired-looking parents trying to manage, excited children, college students with headphones already in place, the hum of conversations, the clicking of overhead compartments and occasional announcements from the captain filled the air. Amara was just getting to the third chapter of her book when she noticed Beverly returning down the aisle with another passenger, a tall man in a business suit who looked annoyed. Beverly stopped right at Amara's row. "Excuse me, sweetie," Beverly said, her voice different than before, tighter somehow. "There seems to be a bit of a mix-up with the seating. We need you to move to another seat." Amara blinked in surprise. "But this is my seat," she said quietly, reaching for the boarding pass her mom had tucked into the front pocket of her backpack. "See? 12A. Beverly glanced at the boarding pass, then at her tablet, frowning slightly. "Yes, but we need to accommodate this gentleman. He's a frequent flyer with our airline." The tall man didn't smile or even look directly at Amara. He just checked his watch impatiently. "Where would I sit?" Amara asked, feeling a knot forming in her stomach. The plane was already almost full. "There's a seat in row 23, Beverly said. "It's not a window seat, I'm afraid, but it's just for this one flight." The gray-haired woman next to Amara spoke up. "Excuse me, but why does the child need to move? Her boarding pass clearly shows this is her assigned seat." A few nearby passengers looked over, curious about the conversation. Amara felt her cheeks growing warm as more people started paying attention. She didn't like being the center of attention this way. "Company policy," Beverly said quickly. "We sometimes need to make adjustments for our premium customers." A man sitting across the aisle leaned forward. "Is that really company policy? To make children change seats even when they have the correct assignment?" Beverly looked uncomfortable. Now, more passengers were watching, some with disapproving expressions. The tall man shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "Perhaps we should check the reservation again," Beverly said, tapping on her tablet. "What's your full name, sweetheart?" Amara sat up straight, remembering how her mother had taught her to speak clearly when talking to adults. "Amara Johnson Williams," she said proudly. Beverly's finger froze mid-tap. The tall man's eyebrows shot up. Even the gray-haired woman seemed surprised. "Johnson Williams?" Beverly repeated. "As in, related to Richard Williams?" Amara nodded. "He's my grandpa, that's who I'm going to visit. Him and Grandma Elise." The air in the plane seemed to change. Beverly, the flight attendant, was still standing there, but now she was looking at Amara differently. Her eyes had gotten wider, and her mouth made a small O shape. The tall businessman who had been tapping his foot impatiently now looked at his watch again, but this time like he was just pretending to be busy. "Richard Williams?" Beverly asked, her voice suddenly higher than before. "The new chief operations officer for the airline?" Amara nodded, not understanding why everyone was acting so strange. Her grandpa had a big job with the airline, that's what her mom had told her. But he was just grandpa to her. The man who let her help plant flowers in the garden and who made pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse on Sunday mornings. "I didn't realize," Beverly began, then stopped. She glanced at the businessman, then back at her tablet. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding. Let me check something." While Beverly tapped furiously on her tablet, the gray-haired woman sitting in the aisle seat gave Amara a gentle smile. "Is this your first time flying alone?" she asked, clearly trying to distract Amara from the awkward situation. "Yes, ma'am," Amara replied, grateful to talk about something else. "My mom had to work today. She's a doctor." "A doctor? How wonderful," the woman said. "And now I see why you're so brave, flying all by yourself." The businessman who had been waiting for Amara's seat cleared his throat loudly. "I don't mean to interrupt, but we're delaying the flight. Can we resolve this seating issue?" Beverly looked up from her tablet, her face flushed. Mr. Parker, it appears there was an error in our system. Ms. Johnson-Williams does indeed have the correct seat assignment. Perhaps we can find you another accommodation? The man, Mr. Parker, frowned. I specifically requested a window seat. I'm a gold member. A few passengers nearby exchanged glances. Amara clutched her book tighter, feeling uncomfortable. She didn't want to cause problems or make anyone upset. Maybe she should just move to the other seat, even if it wasn't fair. I could move, Amara offered quietly. It's okay. The man across the aisle who had spoken up earlier shook his does no, young lady. You shouldn't have to give up your correctly assigned seat. He looked directly at Beverly. I believe the airline's policy is first come, first served when it comes to assigned seating, regardless of membership status. Isn't that right? Before Beverly could answer, another flight attendant appeared. This one was older, with short gray-streaked hair and a pin on her uniform that sparkled in the cabin lights. Is there a problem here, Beverly? The new flight attendant asked. Her name tag read, Diane. Beverly leaned in and whispered something to Diane. Amara couldn't hear what was said, but she saw Diane's eyes flick toward her, then widen slightly. I see, Diane said. She turned to the businessman with a professional smile. Mr. Parker, we apologize for the confusion. If you'll come with me, I believe we have a window seat available in premium economy that we'd be happy to upgrade you to with our compliments. Mr. Parker's frown disappeared instantly. Premium economy? Well, that would be acceptable. As Diane led him away, Beverly turned back to Amara with a completely different expression, warm and almost overly friendly. I am so sorry for the mix-up, Ms. Johnson-Williams. Please accept our apologies. Her voice was louder now, as if she wanted everyone nearby to hear. Of course you'll be keeping your assigned seat. Would you like a special snack box? Or perhaps some hot chocolate? Amara was confused by the sudden change, but nodded hesitantly. Hot chocolate would be nice, thank you. I'll bring that right away, Beverly said with a big smile. And perhaps before we take off, you might like to see the cockpit. Meet the pilots. The gray-haired woman next to Amara raised an eyebrow. My, what service, she commented quietly, just loud enough for Amara to hear. As Beverly hurried away, the plane continued to fill. Amara went back to her book but found it hard to concentrate. She couldn't help noticing how differently Beverly was treating her now. It was nice getting special attention, but something about it didn't feel right. A young woman with curly hair took the middle seat next to Amara. She smiled at Amara as she settled in. That was quite a scene, she said. You handled it very maturely. Amara shrugged, not sure what to say. I just wanted to sit where my mom told me to sit. And you were right to stand your ground, the woman said. By the way, I'm Tanya. I'm Amara. Nice to meet you, Amara. Is Richard Williams really your grandfather? Amara nodded. Yeah. Do you know him? Tanya laughed. Not personally, no. But everyone who works for this airline knows who he is. He's kind of a big deal. The gray-haired woman leaned forward. I read about him in the business section last month. Didn't he just implement that new safety protocol that's being adopted industry-wide? That's him, Tanya confirmed. And he started as a baggage handler 30 years ago, worked his way up. It's an incredible story. Amara hadn't heard that part before. She knew her grandpa worked hard and was important, but she'd never thought about how he started. She made a mental note to ask him about it during her visit. Beverly returned with a steaming cup of hot chocolate topped with whipped cream and a special snack box that wasn't being offered to other passengers. She set them carefully on Amara's tray table. There you go, Ms. Johnson-Williams, and the captain says you're welcome to visit the cockpit after we reach cruising altitude. Thank you, Amara said politely. But you can just call me Amara. Beverly smiled, but it looked a bit stiff. Of course, Amara. If you need anything else at all during the flight, anything at all, just press your call button. I'll be right there. Beverly walked away. Tanya caught Amara's eye and gave her a knowing look. Funny how quickly things change, isn't it? She said quietly. Amara took a sip of her hot chocolate. It was good, sweet and warm. But she couldn't fully enjoy it. She kept thinking about how Beverly had tried to move her before knowing who her grandfather was. Would any of this special treatment be happening if her last name had been different? What about other kids who flew alone? The plane began to push back from the gate. The safety demonstration started with flight attendants showing how to use seatbelts and oxygen masks. Amara watched carefully, even though she'd seen it many times before. Her mom had always told her it was important to pay attention to safety, instructions no matter how many times you'd heard them. As the plane taxied toward the runway, the gray-haired woman turned to Amara again. "You know," she said gently, "what happened earlier wasn't right. They shouldn't have tried to move you just because someone else wanted your seat." Amara nodded. "I know. And I don't think they should be extra nice to me just because of who my grandpa is either." The woman looked surprised, then smiled. "That's a very wise observation for someone your age. My mom says everyone deserves to be treated with respect no matter who they are or what they look like," Amara said, repeating words she'd heard many times at home. Tanya nodded approvingly. "Your mom sounds like a smart woman." The plane gathered speed, rumbling down the runway until Amara felt the familiar lifting sensation as they took off. She watched through the window as the ground fell away, houses and cars growing smaller until they looked like toys, the whole city becoming a patchwork of streets and buildings. Despite the excitement of flying and the special treatment she was now receiving, Amara couldn't shake a funny feeling in her stomach. It wasn't air sickness. She'd flown enough to know what that felt like. It was something else. Something that made her think hard about fairness and why people acted differently around certain people. She wondered what her grandpa would say when she told him about what happened. Would he be angry, embarrassed? Or would he just laugh it off? One thing was for sure, Amara had a lot to tell him when she landed, and not just about her exciting solo flight. She had questions now, important ones about how people should treat each other, and why a last name could make such a big difference. As the plane climbed higher into the clouds, Amara made up her mind. She wouldn't go see the cockpit. It wasn't fair that she got special treatment just because of who her grandfather was. She'd politely decline when Beverly came back. That's what her mom would do. She was sure of it. The plane leveled out above, the clouds turning the world outside Amara's window into a sea of white fluff, stretching as far as she could see. Sunlight bounced off the cotton-like puffs, making everything glow. It was Amara's favorite part of flying, but today she couldn't fully enjoy it. Her mind was still stuck on what had happened before takeoff. Beverly returned to her row, that same big smile plastered on her face. "We've reached cruising altitude, Amara. Would you like to visit the cockpit now? The captain and first officer are expecting you." Amara took a deep breath. "No thank you, Miss Beverly. I think I'll just stay in my seat and read my book." Beverly's smile faltered. "Are you sure? It's a special opportunity. Most passengers don't get to see the cockpit." "I know," Amara said quietly, "but that's why I don't want to go. It doesn't seem fair that I get to do something just because of who my grandpa is." Beverly's face went through several expressions: surprise, confusion, and then something like embarrassment. The gray-haired woman beside Amara coughed softly, hiding what might have been a smile. Tanya, in the middle seat, pretended to be very interested in her magazine, but Amara could tell she was listening. "Well," Beverly said finally, That's very thoughtful of you, Amara. But the offer stands if you change your mind." After Beverly left, Tanya leaned over. "That was pretty impressive, kid. Not many people would turn down special treatment." The gray-haired woman nodded. "Your parents must be raising you right." Amara shrugged. "My mom always says that what you do when no one important is watching shows who you really are. I guess it works the other way too. What you do when someone important is watching also shows who you are." "Out of the mouths of babes," the gray-haired woman murmured. She extended her hand to Amara. "I'm Mrs. Chen, by the way. Gloria Chen." "And I already told you I'm Tanya," the curly-haired woman added. "Tanya Patel. I'm a junior financial analyst, heading to a conference." "I'm Amara Johnson Williams," Amara replied, feeling grown up as she shook Mrs. Chen's hand. "I'm 8. 8 and flying by yourself," Mrs. Chen said. When I was 8, I was afraid to go to the corner store alone. My mom says being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It just means you do things even when you are scared. Tanya smiled. Your mom sounds like a wise woman. What does she do? She's a doctor. She fixes kids' hearts when they're born with problems. A pediatric cardiac surgeon, Mrs. Chen said, clearly impressed. That's a demanding job. Amara nodded proudly. That's why she couldn't come with me this time. She had an emergency surgery today. The conversation paused as the drink cart came down the aisle. The flight attendant pushing it wasn't Beverly, but a younger man with a friendly smile. What would you like to drink? He asked the row. Mrs. Chen requested tomato juice, Tanya asked for ginger ale, and Amara politely requested apple juice. And would you like pretzels or cookies? The flight attendant asked. Cookies, please, Amara said. As the flight attendant handed her the cookie package and juice, he gave her a normal, friendly smile, not the overly eager one Beverly had used. It felt better, more real. After he moved on, Tanya unwrapped her cookie thoughtfully. You know, Amara, what happened earlier, with them trying to move you, that kind of thing happens more often than people realize. What do you mean? Amara asked, taking a small sip of her juice. Well, Tanya said carefully, sometimes people get treated differently because of how they look, or their name, or where they're from. And then when those same people turn out to be important or connected to someone important, suddenly everyone changes how they act. Mrs. Chen nodded solemnly. I've seen it many times in my 62 years. The world isn't always fair about how it treats people at first glance. Amara thought about this. She remembered a time last year when a new student from another country joined her class. Some kids had made fun of his accent at first, but when they found out his dad was a famous soccer player, suddenly everyone wanted to be his friend. Amara hadn't liked that either. My grandpa started as a baggage handler, Amara said, remembering what Tanya had mentioned earlier. What exactly does that mean? It means, Mrs. Chen explained, that he was one of the people who load and unload suitcases from the planes. It's a hard job, lots of heavy lifting, working in all kinds of weather. And now he's one of the top executives at the whole airline, Tanya added. That kind of rise doesn't happen often. Your grandpa must be pretty special. Amara smiled. He is special, but not because of his job. He's special because he lets me help him in the garden even though I accidentally stepped on his tomato plants last year, and because he knows how to fix my dolls when their arms fall off, and because he always listens to my stories, even the really long ones that don't make much sense. Both women laughed, and Amara felt a warm glow inside. She loved making adults laugh, not because she said something silly, but because she said something true. The plane hit a patch of turbulence, causing the drinks to slosh in their cups. The seatbelt sign dinged on, and the captain's voice came over the intercom. Folks, we're experiencing some light turbulence. Please return to your seats and keep your seatbelts fastened until the seatbelt sign turns off. Flight attendants, please pause service. Amara gripped the armrests. She didn't like turbulence, the way it made the plane feel like a boat on choppy water. It always reminded her that they were incredibly high up in the sky, held there by nothing. But physics and engineering, two subjects she hadn't even studied in school yet. Mrs. Chen noticed her tension. Don't worry, dear. Turbulence is normal. I've flown hundreds of times and it's never more than a bumpy road. Tanya nodded in agreement. Think of it as potholes in the sky. Amara tried to smile, but another bump made her stomach flutter. She closed her eyes and took deep breaths like her mom had taught her. Tell us more about what you're going to do at your grandparents' house, Mrs. Chen suggested, clearly trying to distract her. You mentioned something about a garden? Grateful for the distraction, Amara opened her eyes. Grandpa has a huge garden in their backyard. He grows vegetables and flowers. Last summer he grew a sunflower taller than him, and he's really tall, like 6 feet. That's impressive, Tanya said. I can barely keep a cactus alive in my apartment. The plane continued to bump along, but Amara found it easier to handle as she talked about her grandparents' house, the tire swing and the big oak tree, the secret reading nook Grandpa had built in a closet under the stairs, and Grandma's famous chocolate chip pancakes that were somehow better than any other pancakes in the world. Gradually, the turbulence subsided. The seatbelt sign dinged off, and people began moving about the cabin again. Beverly appeared in the aisle, making her way toward their row with determination. "Amara," she said, her voice overly sweet, "I brought you something special from first class." She held out a fancy-looking dessert in a small glass dish. "It's chocolate mousse with raspberry sauce. Our premium passengers love it." Amara looked at the dessert, then at Beverly. "That looks yummy, but I'm okay with just the cookie everyone else got. Maybe someone else would like it." Beverly's smile froze. "But it's a special treat. Just for you." "It's very nice of you," Amara said, politely, just like her parents had taught her. "But I don't need special treats. I'm happy with what everyone else has." A few nearby passengers were watching now. Amara could feel their eyes, but she kept her gaze on Beverly, who seemed unsure what to do with the rejected dessert. "I'll take it," said a boy about Amara's age, 3 rows ahead. He had twisted around in his seat and was eyeing the chocolate mousse with undisguised longing. Beverly hesitated, then forced another smile. "Of course." She handed the dessert to the boy, who accepted it with obvious delight. As Beverly walked away, Mrs. Chen patted Amara's hand. "You're quite something, Amara Johnson Williams." Tanya nodded in agreement. "I think your grandfather is going to be very proud when he hears about today." Amara hoped so. She was starting to understand something important about the world. Something about fairness and how people treat each other. It was confusing and a little sad, but also interesting. She wanted to talk to her grandpa about it, to ask him if people had treated him differently when he was just a baggage handler compared to now, when he was an important executive. The captain announced they were beginning their descent. Outside, the sea of clouds was thinning, revealing glimpses of the ground below. Tiny houses, winding roads, patches of forests and fields. Amara felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She was eager to see her grandparents, but also wondering how to tell them about what happened on the plane. Would they understand why it bothered her? Would her grandpa be upset with the airline staff? One thing was certain. The rest of the flight crew now knew exactly who Amara's grandfather was, and somehow, that had changed everything. The plane began its descent, sinking through the clouds into clearer skies. Amara watched as the ground grew closer, details sharpening from the toy-like view to actual houses, cars, and swimming pools. She always loved this part of flying, seeing the world transform from miniature to life-sized. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our final approach into Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport," the captain's voice announced over the intercom. Local time is 3:45 p.m. and the temperature is a warm 92 degrees. Flight attendants prepare the cabin for landing. Amara felt a flutter of excitement. In just minutes she'd be seeing her grandparents. She wondered if they'd be waiting right at the gate, or if they'd be at that special area where unaccompanied minors got picked up. Her mom had explained the process, but everything had been happening so quickly that morning that some details were fuzzy. Beverly appeared again, moving efficiently down the aisle to check that everyone's seat was upright and tray tables stowed. When she reached Amara's row, her professional smile returned. "Are you excited to see your grandfather, Amara?" she asked, her voice carrying just enough for nearby passengers to hear. "And my grandmother," Amara corrected politely. "I'm excited to see both of them." "Of course," Beverly nodded. "I'm sure they'll be thrilled to hear about your adventure today." Something about the way Beverly said it made Amara think she was worried. Like maybe she thought Amara would tell her grandpa about how they tried to move her from her seat. "It's been an interesting flight," Mrs. Chen commented from her aisle seat, giving Beverly a meaningful look. Beverly's smile tightened. "We always try to make flights memorable for our younger travelers." She moved quickly to the next row. Clearly, eager to end the conversation, Tanya leaned over to Amara. "I think someone's nervous about her job security," she whispered. "I wouldn't tell on her," Amara said. "That wouldn't be nice." "That's very mature of you," Mrs. Chen said, But sometimes people need to learn from their mistakes. The plane dipped, lower, the ground rushing up to meet them. Amara felt the familiar pressure in her ears and remembered to swallow and yawn like her mom had taught her. The wheels touched down with a slight bump, and a cheer went up from a few passengers, mostly the kids and some adults who seemed relieved to be on solid ground again. As the plane taxied toward the terminal, passengers began reaching for bags, stowed under seats, getting ready to leave despite the seatbelt sign still being illuminated. Amara stayed put, remembering her mom's instructions to wait until the plane was completely stopped and the seatbelt sign was turned off. The captain's voice came over the speakers again. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Phoenix. Local time is 3:52 p.m. Please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened until we reach the gate and the seatbelt sign has been turned off. On behalf of our entire crew, thank you for flying with us today." Amara felt a tap on her shoulder and turned to see Tanya smiling at her. "It was really nice meeting you, Amara," she said. "You're a pretty awesome kid." "It was nice meeting you too," Amara replied, feeling grown up and proud. "I have a feeling you're going to do important things someday," Mrs. Chen added from her seat. "Just like your grandfather, but maybe for different reasons." Amara wasn't sure exactly what Mrs. Chen meant, but it felt like a compliment. "Thank you for talking to me during the flight," she said. "It made it less scary to fly by myself." The plane stopped at the gate, and the seatbelt sign dinged off. Passengers immediately stood, reaching for overhead bins and forming a slow-moving line in the aisle. Mrs. Chen and Tanya remained seated. "We'll wait," Mrs. Chen explained. "You'll be escorted off first as an unaccompanied minor." Sure enough, Diane, the senior flight attendant who had helped resolve the seating issue earlier, appeared at their row. "Amara, I'll be escorting you. You off the plane now? Do you have all your belongings?" Amara checked under her seat and in the seat back pocket before nodding. She had her purple backpack with her book, tablet, snacks, and the special ID card her mom had given her with all the important phone numbers. "Say goodbye to your row friends," Diane suggested with a genuine smile. Amara turned to Mrs. Chen and Tanya. "Bye. Thank you for being nice to me." "Safe travels, Amara," Mrs. Chen said warmly. "Keep being you," Tanya added with a wink. Diane led Amara toward the front of the plane, past the rows of waiting passengers. Some smiled at her, including the boy who had happily accepted her rejected special dessert. He gave her a chocolate-smeared grin and a thumbs up. At the door of the plane, Beverly was standing with the other flight attendants, saying goodbye to departing passengers. When she saw Amara, her smile became fixed again. "Goodbye, Amara. It was a pleasure having you on our flight today," she said formally. Amara decided to be kind. Her mom always said kindness costs nothing but means everything. "Thank you for the hot chocolate, Ms. Beverly. It was really good." Beverly's expression softened slightly, relief visible in her eyes. "You're welcome, Amara. Have a wonderful visit with your grandparents." As Diane led Amara up the jetway toward the terminal, Amara felt a strange mix of emotions. She was excited to see her grandparents, but she also felt different somehow, like she'd learned something important during the flight, something that wasn't in any of her school books. The terminal was busy with people rushing in all directions, rolling suitcases behind them or carrying bags slung over shoulders. Announcements echoed overhead, and the smell of coffee and fast food filled the air. "Your grandparents will be waiting at the special family meeting area," Diane explained as they walked. "It's just a short way from here." They passed shops selling souvenirs, books, and snacks. Amara spotted a display of stuffed animals wearing tiny Phoenix t-shirts and almost asked to stop, but remembered she was supposed to stay with Diane. As they approached a doorway with a sign that read, "Unaccompanied, minor meeting area," Diane's pace slowed. She looked down at Amara with an expression Amara couldn't quite read, something between nervous and curious. "Amara, before we meet your grandparents, I wanted to say something," Diane began. "What happened on the plane today, with the seating mix-up? That wasn't right. And how some of us treated you differently after learning who your grandfather is. That wasn't right either." Amara nodded slowly, surprised by Diane's honesty. "I've been a flight attendant for 22 years, Diane continued. "And I've seen, How people can be treated differently based on all sorts of things that shouldn't matter. I just wanted you to know that I noticed how maturely you handled it all. Many adults wouldn't have responded as gracefully as you did. Thank you, Amara said, not sure what else to say. Your grandfather is well respected in this company, Diane added. And from what I saw today, that respect runs in the family. Before Amara could respond, Diane pushed open the door to the meeting area. Inside, a small group of adults waited, some holding signs with children's names. But Amara didn't need to look for a sign. She immediately spotted her grandparents. Her grandfather was tall with salt and pepper hair and glasses, wearing a blue button-up shirt that made his dark skin look warm in the fluorescent lighting. Beside him, her grandmother stood in a flowing yellow dress, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun. They both broke into huge smiles when they saw Amara. "There's my sky traveler," her grandfather called out, opening his arms wide. Amara broke into a run. Forgetting all about walking nicely through the airport, she crashed into her grandfather's embrace, breathing in his familiar scent of aftershave and mint gum. "Grandpa, Grandma, I flew all by myself." Her grandmother joined the hug, wrapping her arms around both of them. "We are so proud of you, sweetheart. Was it scary?" "A little bit at first," Amara admitted. "But then it was interesting." Her grandfather pulled back to look at her face. "Interesting, huh? That sounds like there's a story to tell." Diane approached, holding Amara's ID and paperwork. "Mr. Williams? I'm Diane Harper, lead flight attendant on Amara's flight. I need you to sign here to confirm you've received her." Amara's grandfather straightened up, taking the clipboard. "Of course." As he signed, he glanced at Diane. "How was my granddaughter as a passenger? Well behaved, I hope." Diane smiled. "Sir, your granddaughter was not only well behaved, she was exceptional. In fact, I think the entire crew learned something from her today." Her grandfather raised an eyebrow, looking down at Amara with curious eyes. "Is that right?" Amara shrugged, suddenly shy. "It was nothing, Grandpa. I have a feeling it wasn't nothing," her grandmother said, squeezing Amara's shoulder gently. "But you can tell us all about it on the drive home. I made your favorite cookies this morning, oatmeal chocolate chip with extra chocolate chips." They collected Amara's suitcase and headed toward the exit. Her grandfather kept his hand on her shoulder. He leaned down and whispered, "So, what exactly happened on that flight that has the lead flight attendant looking at you like you're some kind of mini superhero?" Amara took a deep breath. "It's kind of a long story, Grandpa." He smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Well, lucky for you, we've got a 40-minute drive ahead of us. And I want to hear every single detail." As they stepped outside into the Arizona heat, Amara realized she was actually looking forward to telling them what happened. Not to get anyone in trouble, but because she had questions, important ones about fairness and names and how people treat each other. And if anyone would have good answers, it would be her grandfather, who had worked his way up from handling bags to helping run the whole airline. The car was parked in short-term parking, and as they walked, Amara slipped her hand into her grandfather's. It felt strong and safe, just like always. But now she saw him a little differently, not just as Grandpa who made Mickey Mouse pancakes, but as someone who might understand the confusing parts of the world she was just starting to notice. The drive from the airport to her grandparents' house took them through the city and then out into the suburbs. Amara sat in the back seat of her grandfather's silver SUV, watching the palm trees and cactuses glide by outside the window. The air conditioning blasted cool air, a welcome relief from the desert heat they'd walked through in the parking lot. "So," her grandfather said, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror, "about this interesting flight of yours. We're all ears." Amara took a deep breath and started from the beginning. How excited she'd been to fly by herself. How nice the gate agent had been. And then what happened when she was already in her seat and Beverly tried to move her for the businessman. "She said I had to move because he was a frequent flyer," Amara explained, "even though my boarding pass showed I was in the right seat." Her grandmother turned around in the passenger seat to look at Amara, her eyebrows drawn together. "That doesn't sound right at all." "It wasn't right," Amara agreed. But then something weird happened. She told them about Beverly asking for her full name, and how everything changed when the flight attendant heard Johnson Williams. She got all nervous and started treating me super special, Amara said. She offered me a tour of the cockpit and brought me hot chocolate and a fancy dessert that only the first-class passengers get. Her grandfather's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. I see, he said, his voice carefully controlled. And how did that make you feel? Amara thought for a moment. Confused, and a little sad. Because the only thing that changed was that they found out who you are. They didn't treat me that way just because I was me. Her grandmother reached back and patted Amara's knee. Oh, sweetheart. But that's not all, Amara continued. She told them about refusing to visit the cockpit and turning down the special dessert, and how the other passengers, especially Mrs. Chen and Tanya, had been kind to her. As she talked, they turned onto a residential street lined with tidy houses, each with rocks and desert plants instead of lawns. Her grandparents' house was at the end, a warm adobe-colored place with bright flowers growing despite the heat. Her grandfather pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine, but no one moved to get out. He twisted in his seat to face her. Amara, he said, his voice gentle but serious. I want you to know how proud I am of you right now. You are? Absolutely. He nodded. What you did on that plane, standing up for yourself, refusing special treatment, treating everyone with respect, that shows real character. Her grandmother nodded. Your mother is raising you right, that's for sure. Amara felt a warm glow inside. I just did what felt right. Mom always says we should treat people the way we want to be treated. Your mom is a wise woman, her grandfather said with a smile. And she was an awful lot like you when she was your age. They finally got out of the car. Amara's grandfather grabbed her suitcase from the trunk while her grandmother took her backpack. The heat hit Amara like a wall after the cool car, making her skin prickle. Inside the house, it was cool and smelled like cookies. Amara's grandmother led her to the kitchen where a plate of perfectly baked oatmeal chocolate chip cookies sat on the counter. Beside them was a pitcher of lemonade with ice cubes floating on top. First things first, her grandmother said, putting 3 cookies on a plate and pouring a glass of lemonade. Growing travelers need refreshments. Amara bit into a cookie, still slightly warm with melty chocolate chips, and sighed with happiness. The first-class dessert on the plane couldn't have been nearly this good. Her grandfather joined them, sitting at the kitchen island across from Amara. He looked thoughtful, tapping his fingers on the countertop. Amara, he said finally, there's something I want to explain to you. It's about what happened on the plane, and it's important. Amara put down her cookie and listened. What you experience today is something a lot of people face, but in different ways, he began. Sometimes people are treated differently because of what they look like, or their name, or where they're from. And that's not right. Like how Beverly wanted to move me at first? Amara asked. Exactly. Her grandfather nodded. But then when she found out your last name, suddenly everything changed. That's also not right. Because people should be treated well no matter what their last name is, Amara said. Precisely. Her grandfather smiled. You know, when I first started working for the airline 32 years ago, I was just a baggage handler. I loaded suitcases onto planes in the rain and snow and blazing heat. Did you like it? Amara asked. Parts of it. I liked being outside, and I liked the teamwork. But some people didn't treat baggage handlers with much respect. They looked right through us like we weren't even there. Her grandmother nodded. Your grandpa would come home some days so frustrated. People would be rude or act like he was invisible. That's not nice, Amara frowned. No, it wasn't, her grandfather agreed. But it taught me something important. It taught me that every job matters and every person deserves respect. The pilots, the flight attendants, the baggage handlers, the cleaning crew, and yes, even the passengers. He took a sip of lemonade before continuing. When I started moving, up in the company, becoming a supervisor, then a manager, then eventually an executive, I never forgot those days. I promised myself I'd always treat everyone with the same respect, no matter their job or their name. Amara thought about this. Is that why you always talk to the cashiers at the grocery store? And why you know the name of the person who delivers your mail? Her grandfather's eyes crinkled at the corners. You're a very observant young lady. Yes, that's exactly why. Everyone deserves to be seen and respected. Her grandmother placed another cookie on Amara's plate. What you did on that plane today, refusing special treatment just because of who your grandfather is, that was living out exactly what he believes. I didn't know that, Amara said. I just knew it didn't feel right. That feeling, her grandfather said, pointing to her heart, is your moral compass. Always listen to it. They sat quietly for a moment, munching cookies and sipping lemonade. Amara felt like she understood something important, something bigger than herself. But there was still a question nagging at her. Grandpa, are you going to get Beverly in trouble for trying to make me move? Her grandfather considered this. What do you think should happen? Amara thought carefully. I don't think she should get in trouble. I think maybe she just needs to remember that everyone should be treated the same, no matter who they are or who they know. Her grandfather's face broke into a wide smile. Amara Johnson Williams, you are one remarkable 8-year-old. He reached across the counter and squeezed her hand. And I think you're absolutely right. So what are you going to do? Amara asked. Well, he said, I think this is an opportunity. Not just for Beverly, but for the whole airline. He explained that sometimes companies need reminders about treating everyone fairly. He told her about something called unconscious bias, when people treat others differently without even realizing they're doing it. What if, he suggested, we use what happened to you to help train our staff, not to punish anyone, but to make things better for everyone. Amara liked that idea. So other kids won't get asked to move from their seats? And so everyone gets treated with respect, no matter their last name or job or anything else. Her grandfather nodded. Her grandmother reached over and brushed a cookie crumb from Amara's cheek. You know, your little airplane adventure might end up helping a lot of people. The idea made Amara feel warm inside. She hadn't expected her solo flight to turn into something so important. She'd just been trying to do what felt right. Can I help? She asked. With the training thing? Her grandfather looked surprised, then thoughtful. You know what? I think you can. Your perspective would be valuable. Maybe you could record a short video about what happened and how it made you feel. I could do that, Amara said, sitting up straighter. I could explain about my moral compass. Both her grandparents laughed, but not in a way that made Amara feel bad. It was the kind of laugh that meant they were proud and happy. First, let's call your mom and tell her you arrived safely, her grandmother suggested. Then we can talk more about your video. As her grandmother dialed the phone, Amara looked around the familiar kitchen with its colorful tiles and hanging plants. She'd been looking forward to this visit for weeks, helping in the garden, reading in the special nook under the stairs, making pancakes on Sunday morning. All those things would still happen, but now there was something else too, something important she could do with her grandfather. Her grandfather winked at her across the counter. You know what, Amara? I think this visit is going to be extra special. Because of what happened on the plane? Because of how you handled what happened on the plane, he corrected gently. Sometimes life gives us chances to stand up for what's right. You did that today, all on your own. And that makes this grandpa very, very proud. As her grandmother handed her the phone and her mother's voice came through, eager to hear about the flight, Amara felt something shift inside her. The world was more complicated than she'd realized before today, but also full of opportunities to make things better. And somehow, just by being herself and listening to her heart, she'd found one of those opportunities. Mom, she said into the phone, you won't believe what happened on my flight today.